And I will if I continue to work on my stewardship. So you ask the question, what are you living for? When you get there, what will your greeting party look like? How many people have you touched? No, not everybody is called to be a pastor from a pulpit, but each one of us contribute to a body that gets out the message of Christ. That is our stewardship. And each of us have a part to play. We are each going to be credited for what we did for the Lord. So I ask you, are you making disciples? I ask you, are you about your Father's business? So many of you are, and it's such an awesome thing. Yesterday, Robert Lewis told a story. He said one day he was working in a business office, and he mustered up the courage to share the gospel with a co-worker. He went into his office, and he said, look, I just want to share with you about Jesus. Well, the man was very open, and Robert was a young Christian. He was kind of shocked that the guy wanted to receive the Lord, but he said he kind of bumbled and stumbled over his gospel presentation, and the guy said, I'd like to receive Jesus. And he said, you would? So they prayed, and the guy became a Christian. He said that date, and it's been 20 years, and the guy's a committed believer now, has been walking with the Lord. He said every year on that anniversary, that man calls me and thanks me for sharing the gospel with him. He says, that day in that office changed my life, my marriage, my family, my destiny. Thank you. And he doesn't stop calling him every year on that anniversary. Radical. You think that's what this is about. That's the stewardship that Jesus is talking about. See, money is a terrible master, but it can be a good servant. You got to just keep it in perspective, right? Let it be your servant and you'll be fine. But if it becomes your master, it can destroy everything around you. As a matter of fact, in 1 Timothy 6:10, Paul said, for the love of money is the root of what? All sorts of evil. And those who want to get rich, and they pierce themselves through with many a pain. And the truth of the matter is, we've become good at serving two masters. Ouch. Why did I come to church today? I warned people on Friday. I said, don't come Sunday. Don't come. You're not going to want to hear it. But the cool thing is, you guys want to hear the truth, don't you? See, this is how we reprioritize our lives. Jesus says, he who is faithful in a very little thing, verse 10, is faithful also in much. And he who is unrighteous in a very little thing is also unrighteous in much. It's little things. One speaker yesterday said, character is made in the small moments and will be seen in the large moments. Faithful in the small things. If you have a little bit, you give what you can. If you have a lot, then you give in proportion to that. If therefore you have not been faithful, 11, this is a unit, verses 10 through 12 are a unit of thought. If therefore you have not been faithful in the use of unrighteous mammon, money, who will entrust you, contrast, who will entrust the true riches to you? The riches of heaven are the contrast here. How can a ministry be entrusted with more and more growing numbers of souls if it can't be faithful with the money with which it is entrusted? There has to be an open stewardship. If you come to us and you ask us about the books of the church, we should have an open door policy, and we do. We want to be accountable because we want to manage what God has given us well. Why? Because I'm going to stand before Him and give an account for that stewardship. And if you have not been faithful in the use of that which is another's, think of the steward. Who will give you that which is your own? Warren Wiersbe again said, God will not commit His true riches to individuals or ministries that waste money, and will not give an honest accounting to the people who have supported them. Close quote. No servant can serve two masters. For either he will hate the one, notice how radical this is, we're almost done, and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. You can't. Though many in the evangelical world are trying. One pastor said, he was thinking about this subject, and he said, man, it must be very difficult for the wealthy. And then he had a person from Africa come over here, and he said, you know something, Pastor? You're all rich. Every one of you Americans is rich. You see, compared to the bulk of the world, we're all rich. We're all trying to negotiate this with our houses and our cars and how much we give to the church and what we have to manage, and it can be difficult. But the truth is, these two masters will demand everything from you. Look at verse 13. You can't serve them both because they're diametrically opposed to one another. One master is going to tell you to give everything, and the other master is going to tell you to hoard everything. You can't serve them both. You can't. And now, as we get to the Pharisees eavesdropping, notice what Jesus says, or Luke comments on the idea. Now the Pharisees, who were lovers of money, were listening to all these things, and they were convicted. No, it doesn't say that. They said to Jesus, what must we do? We know you're talking to us. No, they what? They scoffed at him, which literally in the Greek means to turn your nose up at him. They went, who does he think he is? Because Jesus attacked their God, and they didn't like it. Ridiculous. Right? They were lovers of money. And he said to them, you are those who justify yourselves in the sight of men, but God knows your hearts. For that which is highly esteemed among men is detestable. That word detestable is often translated abominable. It's the same word used for the abomination that causes desolation in Daniel and Revelation. That which is highly esteemed among men is what in the sight of God? Jesus didn't say, God doesn't really care for it. No, he says, it's an abomination to God. Wow. Really? God does not measure by our ruler, folks. And that is the message that Jesus is giving. And we're going to save the rest for next time. That will lead us into the next story, which is about the rich man and Lazarus, and where he ends up because he ignores the poor that live right at his gate. So the question becomes for us, of course, what shall we do? Father, help us